City Secretary, please, please do roll call.
I understand that the city has, trainings, but for how long, 2 or 3 days, weeks, here, that, well, I don't see all my job, what I can do be engineer, because I have a college degree, and the man I sit here with the college degree is Mr. Garcia right here. He has a business degree, in business administration with accounting and finance. Again, I ask you, who is incompetent in the decision making or is it this council because they signed the right to 3 year contract? I just stand here to believe some decisions. I mean, another administrator, I've never been, but when I get around lives where they think about it, the first thing they tell me is who, I mean, group, why is, why is it? And I'm not going to tell you what I think about. All I can say is he would not be on the payroll, no matter what things he might have done in the past. And I want to know why did you put on your due diligence for the citizens of Cuba? You know, my dad, son, you don't give the fox the keys to the house. And yet, this council renewed his contract, giving him already $3,333.33. and all expenses to $5,833 per month and paying his hotel and all his expenses for 2 days work a week. And then he lives an hour. That's a $2,499.67 for what? 2 days a week of work. What did the government get? You know, let's just about this trip to Washington D.C. or anyone buys food and spends all of his outrageous amounts of money calls serving the official capacity of the city. You know what? Pays to the taxpayers because the contract says all expenses. All he needs to do is produce an invoice. No details, just an invoice, because the contract is too vague. All of this is good. Whoever agreed with the contract should be ashamed of themselves for agreeing to the contract. But remember, you as a councilman, you can terminate this contract because you're under a new administration at any time. Council, there are a lot of things I had discovered that trouble me regarding spending, and I would ask of you to do a forensic audit of the monies that, because I am being told there are missing monies in Cotulla. I leave you with this quote: mistakes are costly and somebody must pay it. Do not let it be the citizens of Cotulla. You are the stewards of the taxpaying dollars. Act like it. Do your job. Think outside the box. Look where you were 10 years ago. Look where you're at now, and look 10 years into the future. Thank you.
Okay, next on the list is going to be Mr. Alfredo Zamora.
Mayor Council. I'm a little confused. I don't know who's in charge because it doesn't seem like anybody wants to make a decision. It was always my belief that if the administration didn't give you any results, you would come to the city council and the city council would do something. Well, I'm back after 30 days. I brought some issues here that have been pending for quite a while, and that's the disposal of illegal sewage in my property. It's happened about 3 times in the last year. For that, we discussed it. I discussed it with everybody that supposedly that there's too much of a press in the box for somebody else. So I come to the city council because I think that this is where a final decision can be made, where people can read. But I see that that doesn't happen. So I'm getting the feeling that all we should hear is come and plug in. And the council just trashes what we say, doesn't take it into consideration and puts it in 518, the waste basket. So I'm gonna each month I'm reading it again. That has been on the table for years. The city infringed on my property without property protocol. The city owes me money for that land. They also owe me money for assessing the damage that the sewage has made on. It's not just one little pile. I'm talking about acres that the city is allowing their system to dump that sewage into my property. Now, we have discussed also, we have a plan of easements. It's something that Mr. Lavadina started years ago. Nothing has happened. I've gone to everybody, the administrator, the attorney, and the consultant, the civil engineer, but nobody answered the call. I come to the city council and said, let's record simply because I thought that that's the way the process of decision-making works. Well, it doesn't. I'm going to, there's a commission, and I don't know if you are familiar with that. It's called Texas Commission on Environment Quality. You file grievances that have to do with illegal sewage. So I brought you, and if people have a hard time reading and interpreting, please let me know and I will help you. But do not ignore it, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and file it in the city. And I might, if I have to go into a lawsuit because the structure doesn't make a decision, well, I'll do that. You know, that land has become contaminated, and that means that the city has to make an assessment of that land and decide and determine if contamination has occurred. I also want to recommend that we have released a policy of how to brief in front of the council, but also on how to address every item on the agenda. Because I was getting to the point that personally, I want to be part of all the decisions that the council make. And I want to address every time you have an item here, position, I have something to say with some person to ask. So I would recommend that we have this policy here for other people to understand what their rights are and how to breathe in front of you, and what responsibilities and civil rights they have in addressing their concern. Yeah. That's what we have.
Thank you. All right, going down to number 5. The departmental and committee reports are coming up next. First one on the list is the municipal courts. It's, Judge Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Wright, Council ladies. Just let y'all know that I did make it out of Odessa. There's a little jump out there from my training, but it is required that you do have 16 hours of judicial training to be able to serve on the bench. So I did complete that within the 3 days period. And it was interesting things that were brought up. They were talking about the reduced conduct changes in the hours that we have, and maybe required to come around in on certain subjects, which I found there were some that were sort of questioning. I had the pleasure of doing a session with the executive director of the TMCEC, Mr. Turner, conducted a session on case law updates, and they were the updates. Some of the case law before our courts. I have no claim over our court, but there are some that could be coming up on that. Other decisions that under the legislation law codes of construction by Chief Judge Miller from Arlington. For the court of AI, which is going to be a huge issue for everyone in the near future. So just be ready. So we want to try to get the courts all set up for issues that we're going to be facing with the public to us concerning AIs. The next thing we did, legal counsel Valdez gave a very big speech on issues of divorce. We had Texas representative judicial writing. Then there was a bond reduction property hearing case for Alabama seminar by Judge Ramsey from Denton. Standing orders for the Council on Direction of Education, and that was Judge Goodman. I believe he was from Lubbock. We had a few of the interesting bills that caught my attention as we were going through them, because there were 8,000 bills filed this year. The bills, there were 1,246 bills passed by the both houses. They have already from 1,136 new laws that will be adopted. So y'all can only imagine what that's going to take. A lot of it for research, a lot of it bringing back and forth. This book that I was given, these two books, you can see those are all in you and revised. So it's going to take a while to go through these. Not all of them apply to the municipal court, but several of them do. And some of the items that caught my eye while we were briefly going over them was Senate Bill 1726, expunsion of alcohol beverage code, and House Bill 467, Family Violence, EPA, the EPO, statute of limitation. The statute of limitation is not going to run out on those, which I'm proud of that bill that was passed. Because at one time, they did have it where it was so many hours that would run out of it, and refiled. Well, now, once you issue that EPO, then it will be there forever. It will not be taken out of the system. Then House Bill 2127, City Council proclamations, which were interesting on which ones they suggest and what they don't suggest. There was a little bit of controversy going back on that one for sure. Then House Bill 303, judgment enforcement. Has to be Senate Bill 1367, confidential for clerks and assistants to the clerks in that office, in our office. There seems to be some concerns about the public saying, well, I heard this from so-and-so that work in your office, and there is a House bill that there will be issues taken. To say if you can prove that the clerk was the one that started the, I guess you say, rumor. So I think that's very important too. We don't want that going out from my office or any office. And another interesting one that was going to affect us all basically is House Bill 3297, no more vehicle safety inspection. So I believe that's going to start September 1st, and how long we have to get them inspected. Then we have another one, House Bill 1819, a juvenile curfew. I believe they have decreased the hours per weekend. And I looked at that one too. So overall, it's a very informative session. Like, we had to run through a lot of it, but I was given some good contact and for the assistance, which I've already called on. So we'll see what we can get done. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is B is code compliance.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Mr. Ray. The code enforcement report was submitted in your packet. If council has any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those. Just to add, there has been 60 fire inspections submitted to the office for this. There's been no citations issued on those fire inspections. Is there any questions?
Any questions on the report? No.
Thank you.
Moving on to C, the city picture water report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Wright. My report, water report for month of June. We had 7 out of our 8 samples that tested negative, tested negative, and one positive sample for coliform. With this coliform, it can be like little dust particles that get in there. Could be touching the rim of the bottle. It could be any little thing. It's nothing major. So it came out negative for E. coli, which is good. The aquifers at 529.02 feet are meant for June. For June was 38,191,530 with a daily demand of 1.2 gallons per day. An update on wells. The check valve was installed at the well line. So we did put 2 new check valves. So well 9, so the swimming pool well, the pump came in, of course it was put into the well, and it's still pending as far as the sample come passing. We've had some issues on getting that well to pass. The bypass on the Breezel well, waiting on parts to come in. I was told it would be a 3-week lead time, and when I called and followed up, they had the parts. They were just waiting on that check valve to come in on the altitude valve, so we can get that into place. Also, we'll have our inspection with TCQ on the water next week. It was scheduled for this week, but the inspector called and had to reschedule. If you have any questions on water.
Okay.
Not much on the wastewater, other than we're just waiting on the final walkthrough. So we complete the wastewater line project that went from the airport road down to Guadalupe Street. So I saw the contractor did email the engineer as far as setting up a time that we can go ahead and close that one out. So hopefully next month we'll have the final payment and it'll be that project will be completed. Any questions?
Thank you. Next on 5D is gas department.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Mr. Red. So for the gas department, for the month of June, we had 5 leaks reported, and we fixed all 5 of those leaks. We have 4 currently scheduled for repair. And those parts of the equipment that I mentioned last month that we were waiting for, they arrived. We're scheduling more leaks to get fixed. The locates came in, we had 58 locates. We attended all 58 of them. We had no damage to our lines due to excavation, which is good. And of course, on a daily basis, we check the regular engineer, check the pressure and all that. The city daily, we're still checking that. We go over those. We also got a new coating for our meters. It's a spray paint, it's a galvanizing compound. So inside that spray paint is put in with things that help resist corrosion. It's also anti-rust. It doesn't chip as bad as the old ones that we're using. So that coating is designed to be galvanized with metal, so it will last longer than the previous one that we were using. And then we were still doing our training and qualified to do the tasks that we have to do in the gas department. 3 tasks or 3 performance evaluations have been completed. We're submitting those into the Energy World Net, so we can get out that we're qualified to do those tasks. The alleged violations we got as a result of our DIM audit. Myself and the consultant are looking for the work plan and the risk model, and we're trying to get a new line that's get replaced that's better for our systems, more at risk. So we get that replaced to help our system and help everybody. So the gas market price for the month of May was $3.21 per cubic foot. The amount of gas that proceeded through the city gate was 2,481, actually 1,000 cubic feet. That's for May. We were pending that bill last month. June's bill still hasn't shown up, so I'll include that one in my next report. So, do you have any questions?
On number 5, I have a question. Are we going to meet that deadline of July 15th?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is going to be East Street and Parks.
Good evening, Mayor. Street personnel addressed debris for residents on South Front Street as per our code enforcement officer. We also continue to remove the brush that's adjacent to the Crystal Lake Cemetery. We also initiated asphalt resurface on Broadwell, Echoes, and Thornton Street by utilizing the walking cost and square pavement and then removing the existing damage asphalt, replacing it with a layer of loose asphalt. We also, our parks and recreation personnel, working at our street department for the 4th of July celebration in Veterans Park by removing and disposing of trash that accumulated. I also want to commend Renee Colon, Arturo Dos Santos, Tony Ramirez, Captain Castillo, and Mike Martinez, who worked 4th of July celebration to the morning hours, including the park and everything, when everything called over, and also Mr. Martinez, commercial trash crew on Friday morning for picking up any debris that was left on the street.
And Mr. Thomas, give them a kudos for us as well. They did it well done.
Thank you.
Next is the sanitation department.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Wright. In your package, you have my transfer station solid waste report for June 2024. You have the tonnage and the pounds that were collected in June. I'm going to check down the cleanup we had. We collected 6 40-yard containers for the total amount of 50,000 pounds, 26.04 tons. And we have 1 40-yard container for metal cleanup at 3.17 tons, 6,340 pounds. It was a successful cleanup. We are planning to have another one in October. Also, the transfer station, the new fence that's for the new addition of Cristo Rey has been finished and completed. May I approach the council member with some pictures of the new fence? And this has it's 8 foot, with a flat sheet on top, pearly metal tubing, and 8 foot long tin metal sheets. Also, since we were able to hire the roll-on driver, I have utilized the sweeper. Since last week we hired, and I take a real critical for the 4th of July, cleaning up prior, cleaning up after that morning, all the debris that was left in the street. So the sweeper with its bag. With a new one, and hopefully come out there more often, sweeping also. The last thing I wanted to inform is that cleanup, they collected approximately 200 tires for that cleanup. And that's the report.
No question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Down to G, animal control.
council members, Mayor, Mr. Wright. Is that what I look like?
Yes.
For the month of June, I had a total of 8 work orders. 0 dogs were adopted. No dogs were surrendered. Was good. A total of 15 dogs were rescued. No dogs were returned to the owners. A total of 6 animals were dead or picked up off the streets. No dogs were euthanized. A total of 9 dogs that were picked up. A total of 6 animals that come from traps. Raccoons, possums, 2 more cats. And kennels are clean and sanitized daily. Dogs and cats are cleaned daily and washed.
And David, just for my sake and to share with the public, did we mitigate that flea station problem?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next is Main Street. Jennifer?
Good evening, Council Mayor, Mr. Wright. I did my report. I think so. Any questions on what I put on there? We're working on the Hispanic Heritage Festival and have reached out to a few bands. I'm just waiting on a call back for me on that. And then we're working on the back to school health fair. Attending that.
The back to school health fair, we're now in, we're working with the chamber.
We'll be participating.
Okay.
So we're giving out school supplies to 200 kids. We have enough for 200.
And kudos to you and your part on the 4th of July as well.
Thank you.
Any questions here? Thank you. And county.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Mr. Wright. Report up, sales tax. Month of July, we collected 184,294. Total today, 1,891,714. We're 10% a little behind today's road, expecting for those numbers to kind of catch up in the months to come. So the next report up on that next page is going to be the hotel motel tax collection. June, for the month of June, we collected 26,549, ending the third quarter with $317,956. It's showing some good signs. This past quarter was a strong quarter. We're still a little behind here today, but again, it's still kind of the construction's still kind of bugging us, and we're still hoping for it to kind of recover, but it's all in, it just takes time. On page 6, we're going to see the general fund total. So for the general fund total, revenues year to date, $2,568,799. Total expenditures, $2,268,173. Total net income, $300,625. On page 9, we're going to see water and total. Total revenue year to date for the water fund, water and sewer fund, $1,213,542. And the next page, we're going to see the expenditures. Total expenditures year to date, $1,112,199, which is net income of $101,342. And on page 12, we're going to see the municipal gas fund bills. The municipal gas fund total revenue year to date, $250,330. No expenditures, $258,136, which nets the city $2,294. On page 14, we're going to see solid waste fund. Year to date total revenue for the solid waste fund, $619,843. Total expenditures, $669,685. Net loss of $49,842.
The last report that's going to be attached is going to be a check register for the month of June. If there are any questions, I will gladly answer them.
Any questions?
Oh, also, we're gonna be starting that budget process soon. We'll keep you all updated with the schedule and the timeline for that. Everyone's input matters, and we're looking forward to, going through that, starting next week. So, thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 6. We're gonna have the approval of the minutes for April 25th of 2024 and June 13th of 2024. Do I have a motion to discuss or to vote on approving? Did we find any corrections or anything that need to be made? I think April 25th, we had a correction in there, right? Ms. Porters?
April 25th, I was not in the council. It has to be approved by the previous council.
Motion to approve or discuss?
To approve.
One motion? We have two.
Or should I do the third?
I'll second.
Second? No, that's it. All right. So we move to approve April 25th of 2024 minutes. I'm sorry? You want to do, that one was for April because this two were not on there, nor was I. So we have the other two already approved. So motion to approve. Say aye.
Aye.
Any nay?
So you have 2 abstaining
Yes.
and 2 voting for.
So that can still not be
Yeah,
approved.
we're
So that
bringing
one,
that back.
bring that back on April 25th.
Yeah.
So then the question is to approve the minutes for June 13th of 2024. We have a motion to approve.
The motion. I have a motion to approve with a correction, please. Item 14, there's a typo for Mr. Ayala made the motion, and Mr. Ayala also seconded.
Okay.
So just with that correction, I do make a motion that the minutes of June 13th be approved.
With that correction. Good. We have a second.
I'll second.
Ana Rodriguez, second the motion. So, motion to approve minutes for June 13th with the corrections. Everyone who's approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Next up, ordinance and resolutions to be approved, and it's going to be number 7. This says discussion and possible action on a resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Cotulla, Texas, establishing the city's intention to reimburse itself for the prior lawful expenditures of funds from the proceeds of obligation to be issued on behalf of the city for authorized purposes and other matters in connection therewith. Do I have a motion for discussion? Motion. Alderman Garcia, motion. Second? Second. Alderman Rodriguez, second.
Yeah, we have a topic. Assistant Chief Martinez, could you come up to the podium, please, sir? You want me to go ahead and be doing it? Sure. Okay. So 3 weeks ago, me and the mayor, we had a meeting with the county judge. It had to do with the ISO fire rating for the city of Cotulla. There was some concerns in the meeting that the volunteer fire department was not up to par, and they were going to hurt the ISO fire rating. The ISO fire rating is an insurance rating for business and residential. The higher the rating, the higher your insurance is. The lower rating, the better the insurance is. For the community, it's good for the residents, that have to pay the insurance. They can pay lower. For business, it's obviously good, and it's also attractive to business that wants to come in. they see a low fire rating and they say, okay, well, the water system and everything's pretty good, and then they don't have to pay the insurance rate as high. It was brought about that the volunteer fire department may be hurting the rating so badly that maybe we would get rid of the fire department, the volunteers. The judge, the mayor, and myself disagreed with that. So in lieu of that, the conversation was, how do we boost the volunteer fire department to make them an asset to the community and help us with the fire rating? It was come about that the way we could make this happen and the best impact of the fire rating in lieu of the water system would be to have another fire truck at that at the volunteer fire department. Did you want to speak on that just a little bit?
Yes, sir. So the gentleman that's going to be doing the ISO rating, his name is Mr. Carden. Mr. Carden did a non-official ISO rating with us just by visiting and having a discussion. He did say that with the amount of businesses, hotels that the city of Petula has, it has to have at least 3 fire trucks and 1 ladder truck responding to every fire inside the city of Petula. Right now we have a ladder and we have an engine. We also have 1 backup. To have that 3rd one would be to purchase a new one. With that said, with the standards, you would have to have anywhere from 3 to 4 firefighters to be responding in that unit at all times. So I've asked the mayor and Mr. Wright if it was possible for the LaSalle County Fire to house some firefighters at the volunteer station in a FEMA trailer, hopefully, and have them responding out of there.
So I believe at one point years ago, the city actually had a FEMA trailer over there, and we were operating as such. I cannot recall how many years, but 5 or 6 years, and then it lasted a few years, and then it went away. I was not privy to why that happened. But I know that it hasn't been to that effect for several years. What we came up with is that the county judge, which he have a commissioner's court meeting on the 22nd of this month, is asking if we could split the price of fire between the county and the city. Total equipment is $903,000 for this vehicle. Our portion is $453,000 of that. I'm a person that, I was asked, and I'll find a way to get it done, and that's exactly what we've done. I have great concern of the financial condition that we're in, the city of Petula. We can definitely do it. We would have to take out a loan to do it. In lieu of that, if the council approves that loan, we would have the fire truck, but I would fear that not this fiscal budget, but the next, we may have to raise property taxes to make that happen. It's not something that we're prepared to purchase, and that's the only way we're going to make it happen is by raising property taxes. I'm also concerned that we do have bigger fish to fry here. We have Texas Water Development Board. We're working on getting a 70-30 grant loan from them. And I was hoping to apply we have applied for somewhere around $20 million. That would be a $14 million grant, $6 million, 0% interest that the city would pay back, over 30 years. Our water system is, the council has done many things to improve it. And we do have a very good system, but there's more that we need. And to me, that's very important. The fire truck, like I said, it does help the community. It does help the business. Helping the ISO rating is also very important, especially if we're going to be attractive and be a growing town. But there's a price to pay for everybody if we do it.
And the price I also wanted you to address was a new truck was going to be how much?
So for the new truck that we have right here today, y'all, is it's going for $725,000 just for the truck. What adds to a total of $900 is all the equipment that comes with it. If we end up buying one from another company, it ends up being a price tag of over $1.2 million. The reason why this is so cheap, we have a really, really good relationship with this particular brand and the seller that is selling us, and he talked the price down quite a bit. Even if we go with another manufacturer, it'll be anywhere from 3 to 5 years before another fire truck gets delivered.
Right. That was another trigger. These people had this vehicle in stock, and delivery of a truck from somewhere else, I was told, would be 5 years.
5 years.
You know, that doesn't help us at all. You know. So really, it's up to the council on this. I've done due diligence, and you guys have to decide.
Which rate are we in right now? The number.
Can you repeat that, sir?
Which rate are we in?
ISO rating?
Yes.
ISO rating is
the number.
Right now, I believe their ISO rating is like a 5.5B.
And how much lower is it gonna drop?
That I couldn't tell you. I don't know how the scoring system that Mr. Cardin will have. I don't know the way they calculate.
Chief Mendez mentioned that there's a possibility to go down to a 2.5.
2.5.
That is quite possible if we have.
So you know that rating is associated with why HEB and Walmart and hospital and things like that would not come in.
Absolutely.
And this council keeps talking about future, and there's things that we have to mitigate at this time.
With that number, it should attract.
I'm still speaking. So that's something to consider. Okay, we're looking at forward. We're looking at forward progress. This council wants forward progress, and there's some things that we have to establish prior to those bigger things coming into the city. So you have the floor.
With that number, it should attract Walmart, HEB, and so on, right? Other kind of businesses.
So what was told to the judge and I was that we haven't had a new rating since when?
We haven't had a rating since 2016.
So we would get a new rating on or about in August sometime.
Yes.
So that's why we're trying to mitigate some of those situations.
His schedule to come to the ISO rating is the middle of August. I want to say it's August 15 to 20 something. But it is the middle of August.
If this council is allowed, we have a citizen that would like to make a comment on this topic. Are we good with that?
Question.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
On the truck for 725, is that a new truck?
Yes, ma'am. It's a brand new truck. It's what they call a demo. So what the owner of that company does, he just mocks up a truck that he thinks some department would want to buy.
Thank you. So we'll give the citizen a moment, please. Thank you.
Council, prior to me coming here, I used to be a commissioner with the ESD board and fine. And we had issues where we were looking for ambulance and stuff. But also, we got to where I understand this is a new machine, and new is always the best. But look at refurbished trucks. They're probably a little bit cheaper. And also, we did a deal with Lackland Air Force Base where we would get some of the equipment that they retired, because they maintain them all the time because they have to because they're military. So that might be an option to look into also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnny.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
The question is, who's better benefit, on the zoning, excuse me, ISO rating, taxes are going up.
Who would benefit from it?
What's that?
What you're asking is who would benefit from it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, otherwise.
Residents and the businesses.
So
pretty much the whole of the city.
Mainly the businesses, I'm talking about the low income, that having to pay taxes, everything's going up, that's gonna be an issue, I think. Also, you can get a new tanker pumper for, I quoted one, I got quoted one for $430,000, which brand new. It's pumper. You don't need it's not more or less like a tender. And mainly that's what the county needs. They don't have any tenders to fight the brush fires. They depend on Delhi or volunteer fire department for water source. So, I mean, there's different ways that we can go. And I think you mentioned, getting refurbished instead of going to the new, because they're expensive. But also, would y'all going to be able to, you're going to have to hire somebody else?
No, sir, we have the personnel already to man that engine.
There would, Mayor, go ahead and speak. There would also be an interlocal agreement established between the county and the city of Cotulla, working out all the particulars on the whatever piece of equipment we decide to purchase. Of course, the ownership will be mutual. We need to figure out who's going to maintain, and we're obviously going to want it stationed at the volunteer. That would have to be in their interlocal agreement. We will have a contract, and we'll have set guidelines in the contract.
And what we'd do with that fire truck it would be 1 mile, we would have it on this side of the track so it could respond in the event of the train blocking and things like that. My understanding of things to come was that the new train bridge and stuff is getting ready to start, and we're going to have a lot of train backup.
Yeah.
And our citizens are going to be stuck on one side or the other in some events. So that would not help us if we had all the fire trucks on the other side.
Yeah, they're building another freight bridge at the Mexico-Laredo border. Right now, currently 38 trains have the ability per day to pass that single bridge that's there. Once they complete the second bridge, which is at 90% construction, it'll double the train traffic coming through Cotulla. So exactly like the mayor said, we have a possibility of trains stalling out or stopping on our tracks, and the fire department getting stuck on one side of town. Now they have the ability to service the full town because they'll have resources at our volunteer fire department.
Another thing, and that engine, you're trying to figure, what's the length on it? 40 feet?
No.
I didn't see any dimensions on it.
It's not a longer one, it's a shorter one.
Double cab.
Yes, it is a double cab.
And you don't have to do something with the station.
It won't fit in there.
20 anchor, and I got here is about 28 feet. That's about, we got about 30 feet.
What would be the difference there if we had a tanker instead of the engine?
The difference is that a tanker would not qualify as an engine for ISO rating. Now, like this gentleman said here, we do have a Air Force truck that is waiting in line to be refurbished that was donated to the South County Fire. Excuse me, and that would count as our third engine. And also another fire truck that was donated by Plains Gas and Oil and Gas.
So currently we have?
Currently we have two of them, one in Encinal, one in Cotulla, but a backup that is waiting in line to be refurbished, excuse me, by Simmons Martin.
And for ISO rating, Encinal cannot dip into our rating.
No, it is too far.
Sir, what is the turnaround on the refurbish?
Right now, they haven't even told us anything. We just know that we are in line for it and what we need to do and what we need to take off.
So currently the thing on the engine is that it is available to us right now. Any questions from the council? Sir, give it to Bianca, please.
I'm going to see if you want to comment.
That tender that I'm talking about, 430,000 new.
Can you issue CBOs?
They should.
No, it's
I
got
think
to
it'll
be.
drop off.
It's gotta be.
I mean, it doesn't mean that.
Yeah, if it was used, we wouldn't have the ability to do it.
This is what we go to.
Yeah, I'll give Robert on that. So,
You
Mr.
know what I mean?
Ticadita, did you have any comments? as far as the financing. As far as used equipment and new equipment, the city, my assumption is they would not have the ability to finance a used piece of equipment against tax note.
Right, Mayor, council members, for the record, Robert Tejeda with Tejeda Financial Consulting, the city's financial advisor. From what I understand, if that's what bond counsel stated, that there's a possibility for used equipment not to be able, again, I would have to lean on bond counsel's advice on that, whether it's legal or not. But the city can purchase a new or a demo, which they would consider as new, whether it's 100% owned by the city or a partnership with the county. And you would be able to finance the truck through the tax notes, which I believe is a couple of items down the road. And the current reimbursement resolution that was approved earlier was provided by your bond counsel. And what that allows the city to do when you approve this item is to take any cash proceeds that you have on hand to be able to either purchase or put a down payment on the vehicle to be able to get it in your possession. And then when you receive the bond proceeds funds on the tax notes, you could take that money and reimburse the general fund. And that was the item on the reimbursement resolution.
So on this item specific, if the council so chooses to move forward, there can be instruction to staff of how we're going to move forward. So if the council chooses to purchase a brand new truck, you can instruct staff to do as such, or you can instruct staff to look further and see if we can find something used, or if we can find something at a lower price. I will tell you that this truck here is quoted through Buy Board, which is government contract, and it is going to be the lowest price that we're going to be able to get on this specific truck. Yes, that's maybe an issue. In 2016, as he mentioned, for that ISO rating, at that point, I believe the fire department purchased the ladder truck that they have. And I remember them having that kind of issue with that ladder truck too. And it may be to the point to where if council chooses, we may have to do some modifications to the building to make it work. So, but then that is another cost and another charge to make it happen.
I did have one thing I was going to say, Mr. Tijerina. If they approve this resolution tonight, they're not obligated to issue this. This is just the first step in the process.
No, absolutely not. This item and item number 9 are just the formality to allow you to move forward. Approving item number 7 is just a safety net. That if you do approve the item number 9 and you do obtain the financing and you do obtain the funding, by approving item number 7, you legally can take bond proceeds. If you spend general fund money, take bond proceeds and put it back in the general fund. Item number 7 is just a safety net that we always recommend to our clients, whether you're a city, county, or school district. It's just a safety net.
So if they approve item 9, what would the next step be?
Item 9 is part of my presentation. I'm kind of moving fast forward, but the next step after, if item 9 is approved, we would come back later in September and present the final interest rate and the final terms of the financing in order to obtain the funds to purchase the fire truck.
And they could say yes or no.
And if they say yes on item 9, we'll come back in September. But by approving item 9 doesn't mean you're entering into the financing. All it is just allowing your bond counsel and your financial advisor to work with Mr. Wright and get together, obtain a financing, come back in September. And at that meeting in September is when you would consider the financing as final. If you approve it in September as final, you're committed to the loan, you get the bond money, you get the money 30 days later, and you lock in the interest rate. So at that time is when you're committed to the financing. Not today, not item number 7, or not item number 9.
This is just to move forward to
Absolutely. And it's something, a formality that we always like to do to allow you to see the process and what it takes. And then later we come back with the final structure and the final rate.
One other thing too, the Commissioner's Court has not approved this yet, and there is no guarantee that they'll approve it. If this fails at Commissioner's Court, it'll die there. Then there's nothing we could do because we cannot take out that $1 million obligation on our own.
The other thing I think that also it will do, if Chief Mendes mentioned, I believe that we could possibly postpone that ISO rating for the gentleman to come in and test us. If hopefully.
We've tried, pulled some strings, and the latest is middle of August. But he did say that even though whatever rating we do get in August, we can always call him to come back.
Do we have to wait a year for him to come back, or could he come
No,
back quickly?
From what I'm understanding, he's saying it would be good at a year, but if we're fixing stuff before that year, then he'll come back.
So, because what it sounds like from Mr. Tigarina, that regardless of what we do today, we wouldn't get a final approval till September. So that does definitely put you past your deadline.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not a person that likes to rush things. I like to educate myself on what's going on.
Absolutely, I do.
And I think that we may get approvals here possibly, and then we can start looking at other avenues also.
Okay, are we ready for the question? Do I have to read the whole thing again?
No, ma'am, you just ask for motion. or discussion.
The motion to vote, you second the motion by Ana Rodriguez
On item number 7.
on item number 7. So I'm gonna take a vote. We had the discussion. So do I have a motion to approve item number 7?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and the vote is a motion to what? You're looking at me.
Motion to.
Do we have the first motion and second motion to vote?
Okay.
So we're gonna do the vote.
Okay.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve item number 7?
Yes. It's all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes.
Was there a second?
Yes, there was a second.
Okay.
second.
Okay.
And then, do we have any nays? The motion passes. Ooh, that was a hard one.
You're getting good at it.
We're getting there.
I don't know.
Okay, moving on to number 8. This is discussion and possible action on a resolution of the City of Cotulla approving a production sharing agreement, PSA, with the EP Energy, EP Company, LLC, EP Energy, for the Harper Pooled Unit, Newman Lease, Dietz A1H Proration Unit, declaring a public purpose incorporation, recitals, providing for severability, providing a repeller, and setting an effective date.
Mayor, this is something that I have worked on with Ray Hawkins. Ray couldn't be here tonight, and John Amon is here this evening. He's with EP Energy. I explained this to David briefly this morning. This is the other side of the ledger. So this is money, okay? This doesn't cost you anything. There are some production units that EP, I believe, already has leased, and they're proposing drilling 2 additional wells that incorporate the 2 units that have already been filed. And what a production sharing agreement is essentially allows you to share in a well that crosses lease lines and goes into other lands that you don't own, but they combine it in one well and you get your proportionate share of the production of that well. And the good thing about a production sharing agreement is that you're able to drill on land that would otherwise not be able to, because it's not big enough to produce on its own, or it's oddly shaped or something of that sort. But this is a very common procedure. It's something that's being done more and more. and I'll let Mr. Heyman fill you in on the details.
Yes, sir.
My name's John. Good evening. John Amon. I represent EP Energy, and Mr. Pena did a pretty good job on describing the overview of the concept. And I'd like to add that the surface of the city of Cotulla tract won't be affected at all. It'll be an off-lease location, kind of south on the Harper Ranch lease tract. And that said location is already built, and we've already drilled a well to the south that won't incorporate the acreage at question here. And are there any further?
I did have a point. I haven't spent a great deal of time looking at the plat, but my understanding, this incorporates Newman, which is the airport, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
and
Newman
then
would be to the north.
and then the Harper unit is down where our cemetery is.
Yes, sir, to the south.
Okay, so the only thing that we need to understand, and something we'll need to figure that out with EP on, is because the airport has received federal funds in the past for expansions of runways and things that have done out there. Any monies that are actually earned on the airport have to remain at the airport.
I see.
Now, the stuff under the cemetery is the city's.
Okay.
If there's oil there, now how you break that up, I mean, you're gonna know you're gonna know how long the laterals are on each place, but that is a bit of an accounting problem for the city. But other than that, I mean, I'm
Yes,
sure
sir.
we can.
And I can certainly look into that.
So that was the only point I was going to make. And I know the airport's a much larger property, so that the lateral length crossing the airport's going to be longer. These up dip, down dip, they're going to
Right.
bottom hole where,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Harper unit will get, it appears from the preliminary plats that they'll get the majority of the lateral length from these new wells.
Okay.
So.
And I think you've got like 28 acres.
Yeah, I think
over transfer
right
station
under
cemetery.
25. I
Yeah,
believe,
something
right
like
under
that.
25,
The airport's
so-
about 100.
So what you want is length,
Right.
which you kind of have.
Yeah, that's what we have there.
So it's a proportion of the wellbore that falls under the Harper unit tract to the total area of the lateral, if that makes sense.
And then what falls under the Newman tract too.
Right.
Is
So
there
I mean,
something
so you take
between?
the total and the proportion that falls under the Harper tract to the total.
Is there
would be
something
the-
between Harper and Newman?
No, sir.
Okay, so they adjoin.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But it'll be something,
Yeah.
you know. And it's-
Revenue for the city.
Yeah, it's.
So in layman's term, what we're
No.
voting on is to let them drill some more.
You're entering into an agreement that EP requires. There are some people that say you don't need them, but they do them. And I've done a bunch of these, and this is pretty standard. You're essentially going to be able to have some production that you wouldn't otherwise have been able to have. So it is a net benefit. Doesn't cost the city anything, and whatever royalties are paid will be determined by the leases on the two units, the Harper and the Newman.
Right. The initial lease and the current unit aren't affected whatsoever.
Okay.
And essentially, I wouldn't
So
say
whatever-
it's allowing us more acknowledging. Would
Well, whatever
that
the
be a better term?
whatever the royalty is, which I think it's a quarter.
Quarter, yeah. I mean, I was
Yeah.
looking at the net revenue interest, and I'm assuming the city has 100% of the minerals under the 25 acres.
Yeah, so 25 acres is way too small to drill a well. They would never touch it.
So
the only way they can do it is to form this.
Directional drilling. You shoot a ladder.
There are two wells that currently exist on the Newman. I mean, on the Harper unit.
And they're off lease, right?
Yes, sir.
So my recommendation would be to approve it. When are they going to drill?
I believe the tentative plan is fourth quarter this year. So the permits have been filed with the Railroad Commission, and it's
The-
It should be on the.
The
drill
total
schedule
lateral
soon.
distance is what?
On one of the wells, I think close to 10,000, and on the other one, significantly longer, probably closer to almost 15,000.
So the longer, and they've learned over the years that the longer the lateral, the better the well. They don't deplete as fast. You get better production out of them, and they'll hold up over time. So you want as 15 is about as far as they'll go, which is about 3 miles.
Mr. Pena's pretty good at this.
He's had enough experience at it.
Well, again, there's no downside at all. If you approve it, you get some royalty.
Because the older Eagleford units, kind of the way they're constructed, don't allow for these longer lateral wells. So is that kind of a fair assessment?
I would say.
All right. Any questions? We're good? Are we ready for the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Guess that's it. Let's see.
And as far as the next step, I can hang around to the end of the meeting. I have the documents here ready to go to be signed.
Yes.
Or I could schedule to come
You
back.
would sign them. I don't know when you want to do it. You could take a quick break before we go to closed session, or we'll
Yeah,
get
we'd
there
like
in a
to-
bit.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you very
John.
much.
He's a notary, so.
Okay, do we have a motion to go ahead and vote on?
My motion.
Motion for a vote? Okay. Now, what is the word? I always forget it. All right.
All in favor?
Say aye.
All in favor?
All in favor to pass number 8, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes on number 8. The first motion was Mr. Rodriguez. Second motion was Trish. Okay. Here we go. Motion to be approved. These are is number 9. Number 9 in your packet, the discussion and possible action to approve a plan of finance to issue tax notes authorizing city staff, bond counsel, and financial advisors to proceed with the planning of such financing for further consideration and approval of the Board of Aldermen and approving other matters incident and related thereto. We have a motion to discuss. We need a presentation from Mr. Tejarino. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Mayor.
Mayor, council members, Mr. Wright and staff, for the record, Robert Tejerina with Tejerina Financial Consulting. There is a handout presentation, brief presentation on the plan of finance for tax notes, Series 2024. Tax notes are a financing instrument that cities and counties can issue in the state of Texas, and it has a maximum maturity of 7 years. This financing that we're looking at is for 5 years. So if you turn to page 2, tax notes. Now, as discussed earlier, we have the fire truck and equipment. It is pretty much what the city is considering purchasing, about $453,000. Cost of issuance about $61,750. A total loan amount about $515,000. If you turn to page 3, this is the tax rate impact. It's preliminary. And as Mr. Wright stated earlier, there is a potential INS tax rate increase. The INS tax rate stands for Interest and Sinking Fund, which is one of the 2 tax rates the city can levy. You have that maintenance and operation tax rate. We are not looking to increase that tax rate, just the Interest and Sinking Fund, the INS. Now on column B, row 12, we have preliminary property values from the appraisal district, roughly $248.1 million. That's an increase. Again, it's preliminary, about 12%. We won't know for about another 2.5 to 3 weeks what the final valuation will be for the city that will be certified for next fiscal year 2025. Now on column D, we have the principal and interest of all the city's debt. These are certificates of obligation, about 70%, maybe a little more, is all geared for water and sewer projects over the years. Texas Water Development Board, USDA. There's one project for City Hall, and that's pretty much it. The INS tax rate is on column I, and it's roughly 43.74 cents on column I. Now, if you turn to page 4, and as Mr. Pena said, today what we're discussing is all preliminary. It's just a plan of finance and allowing us to move forward and work with bond counsel and Mr. Wright. If we were to go out and obtain a financing for $515,000 on column E, you have the principal and interest. And every year every city in the state of Texas has an option come budget time, whether you want to increase your INS tax rate or whether you want to have your water and sewer support more debt or have the INS tax rate support more debt. Either increase one or lower the other or increase both. So right now, you're not deciding whether to have the utility system support the debt or the INS tax rate support the debt. But again, with that preliminary valuation, we're still maintaining roughly about 43-cent INS tax rate for next fiscal year on column I. But please keep in mind there is a potential, depending on what the interest rate is, we're showing about 5.5%. That's preliminary now. We're hoping to get closer to 5%. We won't know what that interest rate is until about mid-September, early September. But again, the principal and interest on column E is preliminary, roughly about $117,000 a year for 5 years. So we turn to page 5 on the timetable of events for the tax notes. The 3 key dates are highlighted in blue. Today, council considers approving the plan of finance and the reimbursement resolution. We have approved the reimbursement resolution. And again, that doesn't cost you anything. It's a safety net that if you do use money from your general fund to the purchase of the fire truck, whenever you get the bond proceeds, roughly September the 26th, you could take whatever you spent from there and put it back in the general fund. That item 7 allows you to legally do that. If you hadn't approved item 7, if you did not approve it and you took bond proceeds and tried and put it in the general fund, it would be illegal. You get a random audit by the IRS. They would highlight that, not only the IRS, but so would your accounting department, so would your external auditor. They would want to see something to the effect of a reimbursement resolution to make sure that you took bond proceeds and put it in the general fund. So the 3 key dates in blue, again, today, July the 11th, September the 5th. At that meeting is when we'll be presenting the final interest rate and the final structure. At that time is when the council will consider the financing as final. But there's another key thing that's not stated here that Mr. Wright and I have discussed, and again, your accounting department knows this better than anybody, is your audits. Your audits are really key and really important to obtain any financing, whether it be for the tax notes or through the Water Development Board, USDA. You need to be up to date on the audits. So we have enough time here, and we're hoping, from what I understand, the end of July, in a few weeks, you should have fiscal year 2022 audit done. Once that audit is complete, that is going to be sent to us, and that's going to be distributed to the banks. We're hoping to get shortly after some good draft numbers for fiscal year 23. And so the placement agent, if this item is approved, is going to grab a bunch of information, 3 years worth of audits, maybe even 5, legal information from your bond counsel, and additional financial information from us. The placement agent is going to put a package together and distribute it to about 25 banks, in-state and out-of-state. They will reach out to the local bank here in Cotulla. They will reach out to the local bank in Pearsall, Frost Bank out of San Antonio, and other banks within the state and out of state. And let them know that we get the 22 audit, and we get good draft numbers for the 23. And if it is approved on September the 5th, the final sale and structure, you'll receive the money on September the 26th. So the last page is the financing team on page 6. City of Petula Financial Advisor, Bond Counsel is Iskamian Panic. Placement agent is FHN Financial. The purchaser and the paying agent is to be determined. We won't know until September the 4th what bank is going to give us the lowest interest rate. And on September the 4th, we'll know. So when we come in front of the council on September the 5th, the purchaser will be filled in, and so will the paying agent. And the paying agent's role is normally just to invoice the city twice a year. Here are your bond payments. This is when they're due. This is how much you owe. I know that's a lot of information. Mayor, council members, any questions? And again, we're not approving to get into the debt. We're not approving to increase the INS tax rate. We're not approving to purchase the fire truck. It's just allowing us to work together as a team to come back at a later date.
Any questions? Okay, are we ready for the question? Okay. So here we're on number 9, a motion to approve. Do we have a motion to vote?
Make a motion to move forward.
To move forward? Second motion?
Motion to move forward.
Can we get the vote? Everybody who wants to pass this number 9?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have any motions? Nay? Number 9 passes.
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. Wright, council members. I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Tequerina.
Yes, sir.
Want to reconnect and we're ready for number 10? Presentation full utility rate study by Capex Consulting Group.
The Jeff Snowden.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay?
Good evening.
Right?
Louder.
Did you say I need to be louder? Is that better?
One moment, Jeff. He's working on the sound.
Okay. Testing 1, 2. Testing.
Jeff, try that.
Testing 1, 2.
No.
Silent.
Just not good.
Can you hear us? Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Can you hear him? We can hear you, but not he. We can't hear him.
Okay, he can't hear us.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Is there a way you can turn that up louder?
That's the loudest it goes.
Put a mic on it.
Yeah, we put a mic on it.
Do we have this one?
Yeah, he had it hooked up. Yeah. He was giving a lot of feedback. I think that was part of the issue. Yeah, he's got it set up.
Testing 1, 2. Any better?
Okay. Go ahead and say something.
Testing 1, 2.
Nothing.
Is that better?
So I have a phone connection here. Can we try to feed that phone connection through and I can call them direct?
Probably could.
Go ahead and give that a try. Hey, Jeff, I'm going to give you a call.
That'd be fine. I'll mute my.
That'll be fine.
Test run everything if it works.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I sure can. Now, are we going to have the ability to put him to the speaker?
Let's feedback.
I can hear you, Jeff, but it's not extremely loud.
Testing 1, 2.
Yeah, I can hear you, Jeff. You're just on my speaker on the phone. I think we had to down through the laptop. Can you get it through the laptop and turn it around so you can reflect us? We're going to go back to the laptop.
Yeah, there was a lot of feedback.
All right, go ahead.
Can you hear him, Jeff?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Good. That's good.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jeff Snowden with CapEx Consulting. Glad to be of service to the city. And I'll go through the presentation. I have 20 slides to share with the team tonight, and I'm glad to stop at any point to answer any questions. This is the water and wastewater rate component of the study I was engaged to perform by the city. At another council meeting, I'll present recommended solid waste and natural gas rates, but tonight we'll focus on water wastewater. If we can please advance the slide. Study objectives is to look at your operating history, your expenses, your current and proposed debt service, and look at the rates as they've performed. I actually prepared your rates most recently in 2014, 10 years ago. And so we've got a lot of history on the performance of the rates, and I'll demonstrate tonight some of the challenges with the rates that have been in place for so long, and while the inflation has really put a lot of strain on your system. If we can please advance the slide. This is a very busy slide, but what I want you to focus on is that you've got 1,696 active water customers and 1,593 active sewer customers. Your customer base is actually declining slightly by about 0.5% a year. That's after some pretty significant growth back in the height of the Eagle Ford from 2012 to 2015. But you have had some declines, so we have to be wary of that when we start forecasting. Advance the slide, please. For forecasting purposes, I'm using the Water Development Board demographers numbers, which they provide decade annual growth rates, and I'm using a 0.914% through 2030, and then it declines thereafter. But very modest growth, which if I look at a long history, I've got data on your system going back to 2004, and that is a reasonable assumption, even though you've got about 5 years of small declines going forward. I'm forecasting you to grow modestly. Next slide, please. Your revenue and operating expense history of the water system. I would like to draw your attention to the top line, your total service revenues from 2018 to 2024 have been practically flat. You haven't grown revenue.
That's from rates. Where you have grown revenue is what's called other charges and transfers in. That's the subsidy from the general fund that's going to water sewer. This budget you're subsidizing from general fund to water sewer about $620,000. So that wasn't a condition that we had the system in as recently as 2018. But as inflation has driven your cost of operations up and you've incurred new debt without adjusting rates, the way you've made up that loss is by contributing general fund tax dollars to the utility. Prior to that, we were actually a standalone, self-funded water, wastewater, natural gas, and solid waste utility. And I think we can get back there. If I can draw your attention to the operating expenses, please note that personnel has grown by 14% per annum, materials and supplies by 26%. So while we have a flat revenue stream, due to inflation, our expenses have really escalated. So we need to address that with rates. Please move to the next slide. We have the same story here. This is on your sewer. You can actually see where your wastewater revenues have dropped slightly. You've shifted some expenses to water, so that's why there's a decline in material supplies. But the net effect is you have a system that is requires the subsidy of general fund, which you don't want to do. You want utilities to stand on their own. Next slide, please. Slide 7. This is a picture of the current debt that water sewer is responsible for servicing. You can see that there's $20.8 million of outstanding debt, including the proposed $6 million in 2025, which that assumes a $20 million issuance with a 70% forgiveness. And the team is hoping to get a $6 million loan at 0%. So that's your outstanding debt, $20.8 million. Currently, it's if you net out what you've already repaid, you're at $12.67 million. If we can move to the next slide. This is really the focus of the study. How much debt service do you pay? This year, you'll pay $716,000 in debt service. Next year, that will go up to $915,000 when you issue the new $6 million. And that $915,000 will prevail for the next through 2040. It'll drop to $280,000 in 2050, but that will be a new normal for Cotulla's water and wastewater system is to service almost $1 million in debt each year. Next slide, please. This is a revenue distribution where I compare how much revenue each class generates versus how much water they consume. For example, residential inside of city limits, they contribute 44% of the revenue. They use 45% of the water. That's close. That's where we wanted it to be. That took some work to get there. If you look in the red, the residential outside city limit, commercial outside city limit, they're contributing a slightly higher amount in revenue than they are in the level of water that they consume. So I would call those providers of subsidy. Who is reaping the benefit of that subsidy? If you look at the green, TDCJ, they are paying in 6.1% of the revenue, and they're using 8.2% of the metered water. So my recommendations will include a slightly higher escalation in their rates so that we correct that subsidy. I'm going to pause if I can answer any questions. If there are none, we can move to the next slide. How does Cotulla stack up with its current water rates based on this is a combined bill for water and sewer at 5,000 gallons of monthly consumption. The average, by the way, in Cotulla is 9,000 gallons, but this is for a lower fixed income user. You can see that the average bill is $40.62.
Next slide, Juan.
Pardon me?
No, I was letting Juan know to go to the next slide, sir.
Okay. So you're at $40.62. You're a full $22 less than the peer group. So you can, all these slides coming up will demonstrate that you're providing a very healthy value to your ratepayers in terms of the service you offer versus the cities around you. And I will add that of these cities, Pearsall, Three Rivers, Jourdanton, and Dilley all have rate studies underway, and that will result in they're increasing their rates as well. So again, you're the lowest of the peer group. Let's move to the next slide, which is a 10,000 gallon average consumption. Average water, wastewater bill at 10,000 gallons is $52.74, $40 below the peer group average. So again, really great value offered by the city. Next slide. Let's look at commercial rates. For commercial rates, benchmark would be 50,000 gallons. You're at $234, well below the peer group average of $411 at 50,000 gallons. Second only to Fremont, which Fremont really shouldn't even be in this peer group. I wanted to expand it and include something a little closer to the coast, but it's really not indicative of the water providers there. So you would be the lowest if I had pulled Fremont out of the peer group. The next slide gives you the same information for 200,000 gallons, and it's the same outcome. You're actually half of what the peer group average is for 200,000 gallons of consumption. So for both residential and commercial, your rates are very competitive, the lowest in the area. I'm going to move to the next slide. And this is just a quick reminder of the importance of allocating minimum charges based on the meter size. This is, if you'll look at the 3/4 inch meter, providing 15 gallons of continuous flow per minute, whereas the 2-inch meter provides 100 gallons of continuous flow. So almost 10 times the level of flow. When your engineers present to you, they typically reference the need for addressing peak demands, and those peak demands are connected to larger meters. So we want to make sure that the larger meters are funding their share of the system expense. Please advance to the next slide. Slide 15 this is a pro forma forecast for the next 5 years of your system if you incur the debt you're looking to incur and leave the rates as they are currently. And what I'm showing is by 2026, you'll be negative by $27,000, and by 2029, you'll be negative by $350,000. So you really, it's not fair it's misleading to say that you could borrow the money with the current rates. Water Development Board would not approve the debt unless you cross-pledged your ad valorem taxes. So in order to pursue the debt and the projects, you will need to develop a rate plan, which is I'm presenting tonight. If we can move on to slide 16. Here is the impact of the proposed residential water and sewer rates that I've developed to correct some of these system challenges. And I'm going to focus on 10,000 gallons. That's the closest to the average residential consumption. They're at $52.74 currently. That's the third set of rows down. And I would recommend that those rates go up by $2.68 on each October, beginning October 1 of 24. So $52.74 becomes $55.36 October 1 of 24. It becomes $58 October 1 of 25, and so on. And we gradually raise these rates at about 4.6 per year, less than inflation, depending on what inflation run you're looking at. In the end, we would get to a $66.12 combined rate in October of 28. I'm going to move to the next slide. So this slide addresses the question, if Cotulla were to adopt these rates and the other cities in the peer group were to raise their rates by 5% per annum over the same 5 years, which it appears that they may be raising rates more aggressively than that. Where would Cotulla stack up in terms of the peer group? And you can see that you will still be the lowest cost provider of water sewer for residential. I'm going to advance the slide, and I have the same information on commercial rates. Commercial rates, we can focus on the 50,000 gallon level of consumption. I'm recommending that they go up by about 5.3% per annum, or about $13.60 increase on the monthly bill beginning each October. And if we advance to slide 19, we can see that if those rates go into place and the other cities raise rates by 5% per year, you will still be the lowest cost provider of water sewer in the area, excluding Fremont. So let's now take a look at the last slide, slide 20. This is a pro forma cash flow forecast of the next 5 years, assuming you borrow the money and raise the rates. And I want to draw to your attention also the non-rate revenue, which is the second row. That's the $620,000 that general fund is right now subsidizing water sewer. And this rate plan actually eliminates that over 10 years. I tried to eliminate it over 5 years, but the rate increases were too abrupt, too burdensome, in my opinion. We got closer to double digits in percentage increases, which we try to avoid. So I talked to Mr. Wright, and he said a 10-year plan to eliminate that general fund subsidy would be at least acceptable enough to present to you tonight. And so the point of this slide is that these rates will bring you to cash flow positive and allow you to meet the coverage ratios that Water Development Board requires when they loan folks $6 million. The next steps after I respond to your questions and give you final rate you're comfortable with is I would draft a rate ordinance and put that on a future agenda for your attorney to review and for you to consider. That is the end of my prepared statements, and thank y'all for letting me help, and I'm glad to answer questions.
So Jeff, next month, let the council know you'll be returning for the municipal solid waste and the gas department study also, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. I kind of want to say something real quick. You know, what we see here, it really contests to the efficiency of the city and what we've had to go through financially. And you can see in our area, other cities, their rates, I mean, look, double, you know, and we really ran efficiently. But on the other side of that too, is that we've also sacrificed services to do that. And that's what I've taken into consideration. Roads, the county's paid for the roads. We do not have the ability to repave a brand new road at this point because every department in the city of Cotulla is being subsidized by general fund sales tax. Not one department in the city is freestanding at this point. And that's why we brought this along, and that's why we've hired Jeff to do the rate study. You know, the 10 years that he mentioned, I say that was reasonable because just my opinion only is that I felt we didn't want to put too much on our residents at one time. So if we moved it out to 10 years, it would be more manageable. One other instance real quick, I've noticed, you know, the light company, I just re-signed contract this year and it's double what I was paying. You know, and this, I know it hurts all of us, everybody. And this is probably negligible compared, you know. So.
The other thing that David had mentioned before also is that pre-COVID time, everything went up and we didn't.
That's right.
We didn't. So all expenses everywhere, wherever you go buy, food, anything went up, and we didn't. So we held out as long as possible, but I think it's that time to start addressing.
And you do see it from from Trace's report. Sales tax, it's also leveled out and it's actually lowering at this point. We're at 12% or 10% deficit for the year. You know, and sales tax pays payroll also. And I'm not afraid to say payroll is running at $180,000 a month. If we get a sales tax that comes in at 169 like it did last month, we're not even making payroll. But then we're asking sales tax to subsidize our departments too. There's not going to be a good end to this if we don't do anything.
So ultimately, what's coming is probably all the way across, whether it's property tax plus this, plus that, is going to put us in that positive spin and not necessarily coming in from behind where we're at right now. Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
That's exactly what's happening.
And just to add, these are the kinds of investments that you want to make because they're creating the infrastructure and the incentives for that economic development that you all have expressed your desire for. You don't have water, you don't have a good fire department, you have those things.
It's not coming.
They look elsewhere.
That's right. They're gonna run right over us.
And it's not anything that's glamorous, but you will never be the lowest among your peers unless you take these actions proactively. And that's why you've been able to do that. And I think that the citizens may not even understand that because they may think they're paying too much, but relatively speaking, you have done the right thing because you've made these changes incrementally. And I think the only way out of the dilemma is to grow your way out of it with economic development. You're going to have that, and I think it's coming, but these are the things that create the pathway for that to happen. And it may be 10 years from now, maybe 15 years, maybe 5 years from now, you don't know.
But we're lowest in sales tax, we're lowest in the rates,
Everything.
we're lowest and we want more, and there's no kitty to have more.
I mean, another way is we're staying behind. And on the long when excuse me, I'm stuttering.
It's okay.
On the long run, it's gonna affect us if we don't move forward right now. If we don't push this.
This will
right
cripple
now.
the city.
Yes.
If you don't have water.
Yes.
It'll also, if inflation stays the way it is, it's going to drive us to the point of, it will drive us to bankruptcy. It's to the point that we can't maintain our debt. We can't pay our debt.
I'm all about moving forward, so I'm up for it.
Okay. Texas Water Development Board, and Tres can speak on this a little bit also, they've visited us already several times. They've sent us letters. And they have said that we see that you haven't done a rate study and we're very worried that you cannot pay our debt. And this is going to be from prior audits that they've seen. And the last audit they had was 2021. They saw this. Look at us now, and they have visited and we have to tell them, hey, your debt comes first. We pay you first to try to get, try to console them a little bit. But at the end of the day, we did take $20 million out from these people. And part of that deal is if we didn't keep up with our obligation, they were going to come in and set the rate.
Yes.
And that's not what we want, because then now we lose control. It's very important, and it's unfortunate. Everybody here is paying a lot for everything, but it's needed. It's absolutely needed.
Mr. Garcia, can you touch it on that?
So ultimately, all these
To the podium, please.
So the business type funds that we have, I mean, obviously the goal is to make sure they're all self-sustaining, but as y'all stated, inflation's going up and we've kind of stayed behind the pace here. So, it's my opinion, but I think that, and I thank you, Mr. Snowden, for your presentation. I think we should really appreciate the work that he's done and really consider what he's saying, because we are a little, behind, and I think it's time to kind of, go in that right direction. Things are getting expensive, unfortunately, and prices are going up and we're kind of staying behind. So if we want to continue giving those services, high quality services, we need to keep up.
Yep. I agree.
What's it?
This is discussion only at this point. We're gonna bring it back again next month with the sanitation and the gas. We didn't want to do too much at once.
Okay.
Then we may look for approval next meeting.
Good. That way, if you come up with more questions and things like that, we can answer those at that time. Say thank you to Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad to be of service. We'll talk soon.
Okay, moving on to number 11. Discussion and possible action to approve task order number 2 submitted by CDM Smith for the City of Cotulla Waterworks Department, I believe, improvement project in the amount of $82,400.
This one here is a wastewater plant project. We have a $3.5 million project sitting on the shelf for the wastewater plant. The money that was approved 2015 Texas Water Development Board, I believe it was $15 million. As Jimmy was explaining earlier, we're wrapping up the sewer line project to the airport. We have approximately $900,000 left over. Out of that $3.5 million project, we want to take one phase of that project because we have 3 different aspects. You have what's called a mechanical bar screen. There's one of the clarification units. It's one of those big circle concrete units at the wastewater plant that needs to be rebuilt. And then we were going to do an addition of drying beds, which is those filter beds all the way at the bottom of the plant. That was the complete project. What we're looking to do with the remaining funds from the Texas Water Development Board loan is to do the screening project, the mechanical bar screen. That mechanical bar screen will be placed. There's a main entry lift station at the wastewater plant. They will place that down into that lift station, and it's like a corkscrew that'll run the trash out of that lift station. I know that you've heard for years about all the trash at the wastewater plant because at all the meetings I've always brought it up. It's detrimental to our equipment out there. We've replaced $15,000 at a time pumps and motors over and over again because of trash, and we really believe that it's needed. Miss Barna, which I believe some of the new council members, I believe you may know her from other projects. Mayor, would be the first time you've met her. She has a little bit to say on the project and what she's going to do for this amount of money.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, Council, Mr. Wright, again, my name is Stacy Barna. I work with CDM Smith. We've worked with the city, I've worked with the city probably 8-9 years now for water, wastewater projects, and also applying and receiving some of the low interest loans and grants from the Texas Water Development Board that Mr. Wright was talking about. Last time I came to you for this project was probably about a year and a half ago, and we started design of the project. In the meanwhile, we worked on completing a LOMAR, so it was a map revision to your flood maps. So we've done that. That's completed at this point and approved by FEMA. We've been working on a citywide hazard mitigation plan. That's in its final stages of approval from FEMA. And that's needed in order to receive additional funds from FEMA. So that's pretty important. We've also been doing the design on generators for well 8 and well 9. And as soon as funds are received from that for FEMA, we'll be able to go out and advertise for bid for those projects. So this project, as Mr. Wright was explaining, is for the wastewater improvement project. We started design on this, as he mentioned, for multiple components, and the design on them is complete. And the idea when we first applied for this project funding, so this is funding that the city already has, years ago, was basically to do the sewer line, and then with whatever funds were remaining, we knew there was several items that needed to be addressed at the wastewater plant. As you've already said, and actually talking about the last item, we've had COVID, we've had a lot of costs go, just increase. So the hope was to be able to do more work, but we've had to kind of de-scope it and just move forward with this influent course screen for now, with the idea that it's all designed, and when more funds become available, we'll be able to actually go ahead and advertise and bid for the remaining parts of the project, hopefully with some additional funds from the Texas Water Development Board. We did submit a project form for additional funds from the Water Development Board. We should hear in the next few weeks exactly where the city will score on that. I did talk with them the other day. So we know to expect that in the next few weeks. And also we know that the city will qualify for 70% principal forgiveness with a 30% loan component. What we don't know is exactly what number you'll be on the list to know how far that money will extend down to make sure that you're included or when you'd be included. So that's what we'll hopefully find out soon. So this project is basically just amending task order 2, which was for the design, to include 2C. So what 2C is getting all the documents ready as far as descoping, so everything's ready to bid for the Influent Core Screen project. And then it would be bidding the project and basically construction administration for us through the remainder of that project. That's what this task is.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this was on the agenda last month. We tabled it because there was a typo in the price.
You ready? Okay, so we make a motion we've done the discussion. Do we have any questions or anything on it before we go forward? For Stacy? No? Okay, you ready for the question? We have a motion to vote?
Motion.
Mr. Rodriguez makes the first motion. Second, Ms. Korlinski. All right. So we have a vote to approve task number 12, task order number 7, submitted by CDM. Do I have everybody who's approving to pass this?
All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Task order number 2.
No. According, I'm reading number 12, and then it's
Oh, mine says 2.
number 7,
Okay.
submitted by CDM. So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? We have no nays and three ayes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. All right. Moving down to 13.
12.
I'm sorry, 12. I wrote on 12 and I thought, moving on to 12. Discussion and possible action to approve. No, we already did that. That was number 2. What was number 11, right?
Yes, number 11.
That's what you were saying.
Right.
Okay, here we go, number 12. Discussion and possible action to approve task order number 7 submitted by CDM for the city Cotulla planning and permit update in the amount of $134,080.
Okay, so this, yeah, you can go ahead and speak on it, Stacy. This is for a resiliency plan. This is for our wastewater plant permit and for our, excuse me, but it's for the water
Conservation Plan.
Yeah, the water conservation plan. Excuse me.
No, you've covered it. So again, Stacy Barnes, CDM Smith.
Tongue twisted like me?
Yes.
For this scope, this is actually, we've got a few different items here, and these are all essentially regulatory requirements. They're things that the city needs to do. They're either required by the Environmental Protection Agency or the TCEQ. So the Water Conservation Plan is something that needs to be updated every 5 years. Updates the plans, based on water usage. And then updated ordinance, and that's required by TWDB as a part of receiving funding from them, as the city has before. So in order, to stay in compliance with that, and also then to receive hopefully new funding, that's something that would need to be completed. The TIPD's permit renewal is the wastewater discharge. So that's something that's required every 5 years to be renewed. So we did that for you 5 years ago too, as well. And then the risk and resilience assessment emergency response plan is specific to EPA. That was required by OEA back in 2018. It was a federal act that EPA is managing on behalf of that approval. And it's basically, the risk and resilience assessment is a citywide assessment on any risks. And they can be really like an all hazards assessment. So it's not only weather, but it's man-made risks. And a lot of this was based on terrorism and cybersecurity and a lot of those more recent threats that we're seeing. So the requirement is to do that assessment. We'll come in and work with the city to talk with everyone in the city, with Mr. Wright's staff, to figure out exactly what the concerns would be, and of course, weather related, as well as anything that would be man-made. Complete the assessment, and then also from there, update any emergency response plan changes based on that for the city. That's something that's required every 5 years. The hope would be to actually get the city in a good position with the software we have, where we would do this with you this time, but you would be able to continue it on your own as you want to make changes to the program.
So these, so also, part of the reason why the city doesn't do this on its own is that the state entities, federal entities require an engineer stamp on these type of documents. So we have to outsource it. We have really no choice in that part. The drought contingency plan, I've discussed with Ms. Barna, and I'm pretty sure most of the council here knows that I'm very purview to our water well system. I've also expressed a concern to her that, you know, we have 2 new wells, and that's proven. We now have the ability to drop a pump as far as we want down into those wells, where before we did not. We had a scope in at 1,000 feet, and that was causing a lot of issue for us. Right now, stage 1 is at 530 feet on our aquifer. Today, we're at 529, so we're just under stage 1. In the drought contingency plan, I would like to see stage 1 to start at 545 feet. Part of my motivation is that I know that the wells can handle it. Secondarily is that we're putting restrictions on our community, but we have to remember that we have a whole slew of water wells from the oil exploration all the way around Cotulla that has no regulation on them or no restriction or anything like that. And they are the primary contributor to the issues. What is happening with our wells, our residents are not doing it. So I feel like, why are we going to keep penalizing our residents when we don't have control over this? You know, state law will need to change to fix these kind of things. The way things are right now, the law is the law of the biggest pump. They can drill it, they can pump as much as they want, and they can draw it down as much as they want. You know, and it's not us that's doing it. You know, I have graphs. I know I've showed everybody here the graphs from 2008. We've dropped 250 feet. That's not Cotulla, that's the oil field. You can see 2008, 2015, they left, went back up. 2016, they came back and it shot way down. You know, no matter what we do, this is the position we're in.
And some of those actions were taken off of 468. Some of those wells, David informed me, was that they dried up because those companies just took all the water that was there.
Yeah.
And again, we're dinging the citizens, and they're not the ones doing it. So we have to try to mitigate that also.
Now, considerations will take into consideration that if we have wells go down and I don't have the ability to get that well up quickly in a drought contingency plan, I can go ahead and enact the stage 2. But then that's our doing, you know. But as far as level drop, you know, we can up that number and we will be safe. I'm very confident of that.
Yep. Any questions? Good. Stacy, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready for the vote?
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of discussion and possible action on that, approve the task order number 7 submitted by CDM of $134,080. Do I have
I'll make a motion.
motion to pass? Okay, to vote. We have a second?
Second.
Ms. Garcia seconds. Mr. Korolinsky seconds. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All nays? Any? The motion passes.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to 13, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Here we go. Discussion and possible action to approve the demolition of old Red Store number 3 owned by the city of Cotulla.
This is the building across from the Plaza Florito on Gulf Street that was owned by the Vasquez family. We've done inspection. I've had our architects do inspection of the property, visual inspections, and including myself. Architect's recommendation is that due to all the water damage that's in the building, which is excessive, the cracked foundation, which there's several cracks in the foundation throughout, that the building would not be viable and would not be cost effective to renovate or rebuild. I'm not saying that this is what should happen. I would recommend, staff is going to recommend to the council that we do demolish the building. I know there was a prior plan of demolition for the building and to create a parking lot for the plaza. That's not my decision. That's the council's decision on how we move forward with the building. But staff's recommendation would be to get it down. It is very dangerous. And I mean, I've been out in there, it's falling apart. Unfortunately, is what it is.
And what did we pay for this?
$135,000. So I know that this happens. You know, we acquire properties so we can clean properties and we can beautify the area, and that was the motivation originally. You know, and the motivation after that was to build a parking lot for the Plaza Florida. If council chooses to have some other type of use for the building, we would look into it and make it happen.
I'd like
Not
to
the
throw
building
out,
per se, but the properties.
yeah. I'd like to throw out a little bit of information that some of the constituents addressed to me on the Plaza Florida and renovating when they're looking for a rec center for the children. The kids come off the bus right there. So just throwing it out there for later, but something to consider.
I'm for it. Also for that. Brick center.
All right. If there's any more discussion, any questions? Do we have a motion to place a vote?
I have a motion to demolish the building.
Yes.
Yes.
We have the motion. Second motion? Okay. All in favor of the demolition of Old Red Store number 3?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have any nays? Motion passes. Are we striking out 14, David? after all?
14 strike, please, Mayor.
Moving on
You'll
to,
need a motion.
I'm sorry. We'll have a motion to strike number 14. I believe that one's going to go to closed session, right?
That's correct.
I'll make a motion to table.
Strike it, strike it.
Oh, strike it.
Okay. All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Garcia, seconds. Okay. I'm gonna write myself a note. Moving on to 15. Discussion and possible action to approve raising the starting salary for $15 an hour for city employees. Do we need a discussion on that? And I'll let David tell you how
I
many
would like to
employees.
make a comment.
Okay.
There's gonna be 8 employees that are gonna be increased to $15 an hour, predominantly new employees. With the retention of staff that that the city has had over the years, predominantly most employees are over $15 an hour. As we spoke about all night financially, the city, every action that we make is gonna have a reaction. I currently have 2 vacant positions in the budget, and in order to do this, I'm going to have to remove those positions until we get into a more securely financial situation. So, and that's really all I have to say about it. It's a good thing, but there's going to be a reaction.
And I think there's other places that we can look on pulling back a little bit, maybe not getting rid of the positions, but waiting a little bit to make those hires, that kind of thing. There's other places that we might be able to cut back. I think it's a positive thing. They're coming into the city government and a city, governing body, and we're paying less than what they can get. I'm sorry, at McDonald's. So
I had a question. Is this going to affect? I know this last budget we gave them, was it 5% increase?
We gave a 5% increase.
So
Absolutely.
Is that going to affect that, or is that going to continue?
Yeah,
Because I know we've done it for the past 2 years, I believe.
Yeah, we've actually, in the last 12 years, 13 years that I've been here, I've never gotten less than a 5% raise on a yearly basis. One year I got a 10% raise, which was a staff and citywide raise. I have great concern about this because of the retention that we have with the city. I really think that we need to switch gears on the cost of living adjustment being 5%. I think that we need to be at a real cost of living adjustment in our budgets. And maybe we can do some kind of performance incentives, give $1 raise to employees that do good on their evaluations. The way that saves money is that I don't get a $5,000 raise automatically every year. So we give $1 to the employees that do well, 50 cents, $1 depending on their evaluation. And even if the council says, okay, well, I get $1 raise, well, that's not $5,000. And that equivalates to all the staff that's making higher amounts. You know, we've all been here. A lot of us, let's say all, but a lot of us have been here a long time, and we've benefited from what the council's given us. You know, financially, the city doesn't have the ability to do it anymore. We approve these rates, and after a year or two, we may be able to get into that position again. But right now, I don't think it's reasonable.
So what are we looking at as far as rate when you say cost of living? Is it 3%? I know. I mean, in the line of work I'm in, it's around 3%.
That's where I'm looking at, about 3%. We're going to take that 2% away and do a performance
And when does that
evaluation.
percent raise come in?
October 1st, when the budget is approved.
And we haven't even looked at really what kind of rate what that impact would do to everybody's pay. I think we're working with Tres on some of those things and looking at maybe providing the council with more information on maybe some salary caps, things like that. So we are trying to address so that we mitigate and maybe have a 5-year plan instead of just constant, you know, dishing out those raises, but have a constant, because of being in the red later on, we have to look and do that 5-year plan so that, you know, that would what we would bring to you.
So that is something I have been looking in also. We actually have a structure set up already for that. I didn't bring it to this agenda. Like the mayor said, we are looking into it a little more, and it may come at the next agenda. So it is true. A lot of cities do have caps, you know, and some of us, I would be willing to say some of us may be past them, you know, for specific things here. Caps all the way through all the staff, all the positions, you know, and the way to get around the cap is to move up, get educated, get a license, and move up. But you have a people, I'm not saying in general, but theoretically you could have a person as a laborer for 30 years and he might be making more than a supervisor. You know, well, he should move and be the supervisor, you know. So, and that's just something we are looking at too.
So what he's talking about is the incentive to get more pay later, maybe during in those caps and during those deals, would be to bid in for those positions that are at a higher rate by getting trainings and things like that, licenses and certifications.
It's kind of, you know, most of us that are here today, I mean, I speak for myself and I can speak for several employees here. We started at $8, $7.50, $8. The only way we got the raise was the 5%, or if we went and we got a license or we educated ourselves. Now we've gotten to the point that the retention, and we've gotten all these licenses, that it is true. We're on the higher, I don't want to say we're on the higher end, but we're on the mid end from what I'm seeing through my investigation in the TML and what cities our size pay. So.
Any questions?
No.
Are we ready for the question? All right, do I have a motion ready for the vote?
I motion.
Second, Ms. Korlinski, second motion. So all in favor of discussion, approval of raising starting pay rate to $15 an hour for those employees under that rate?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The nays? Any nays? No nays. Motion passes. All right, number 16. And that one is a discussion of possible action to ratify an emergency expense invoice from, what is that? Solonsky's Welding and Pumps Incorporated for well repairs in the amount of $103,691.81.
Jimmy, you want to speak on this one? Well number 8, which is the one located at Cherokee and Choctaw, had a pump failure. Electric motor, both. I'll let you speak on it. I apologize. I'll start rambling.
Well, like Mr. Wright was saying, well number 8, we did have issues with it. I want to say we submitted it into TML for a claim. We did get approved for it, and we will be. sorry, this was gone down a few times already, so I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry. No, we didn't submit this one in the claim. This one was actually, it had gone down, and we had to get a new pump. We had to get a new motor, and I believe this was due to a surge, a power surge that had happened. So the pump and the motor, I mean, it did cost some money. It's because it's a deep well, and it's a bigger well, bigger pump. So it did the cost of it was pretty high.
This is the one that Mr. Dovalina would consider the super well that we built and put in service in 2017. Pump setting is 1,000 feet, which is deeper than any other well. The pump size is bigger, more expensive than any other well we have in Cthulhu.
And this well does produce 950 gallons. We had at one time we were pulling 1,100 out of it, but when we were flushing, we pull out 1,000 gallons a minute. And when we close the valve, of course, we're pulling a little bit. We're pulling 950. So we're right back where we need to be at.
Sorry, Jimmy. It's our highest producer also.
Yes.
And Jimmy, could you clarify that that electrical surge is nothing that was faulty with the equipment? It was more something we can't control.
Right. From the electric power line. So
a big indicator on wells, when wells start to fail, you see production drop. This well was already showing that issue. We did recognize that we were producing 500 gallons a minute from the well. That's a very big indicator that some of the bowls in the pump are going out. We were already concerned, obviously, and then the power surge happened, and it just compiled it and made it worse.
Any questions for Jimmy? We have a motion to vote on. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Mr. Rodriguez makes a motion to go ahead and vote on the topic. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Garcia, the second. So all in favor of ratifying an emergency expense invoice for the water well repairs of the amount of $103,691.81. Say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes. Okay, here we have a Zoom discussion on number 17, an update on foreign trade zone application consultant Jose Quinones, EP Global Consulting. Here we go.
Yes, we had asked Mr. Quinones, who's been patiently waiting for us, to just give us a brief update. For those who may need a little bit of a reminder of what we're doing here, there is a alternate certification program. That may not be the right word, but an alternate way to get a foreign trade zone designation other than by establishing it through state law, which we tried to do and didn't succeed. There was a contract that was let, 60 days ago, something like that, with EP Global Consulting. Mr. Quinones has participated in at least one meeting with us by phone, and David and I have met with them. And essentially, all we were asking for was just kind of an update as to what's happening with the application. This is a time-consuming, complex application process that's not guaranteed that you're going to get your certification or your designation. So with that, I would just turn it over to Mr. Quinones, who's joining us from, I believe, El Paso.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Well, you know, I was prepared to give a presentation with a PowerPoint if need be for those that are new to the City Council of Cotulla. Or I can give a very short version, 5-10 minute version, because I know that time's precious for you. So I'll kind of like ask you before I proceed on how we can go about this and discussing, giving you an update very quickly.
Yeah, short version.
Yeah.
Short version? Okay. Well, so I'm going to assume that all the council already has an idea what a foreign trade zone is, and that the city of Cotulla, obviously a couple of months ago, took the action to proceed and hired me to take on the application. The application is pretty much a joint effort. My job is to kind of guide and put the pieces together. So what I've been working on is doing some research, touching base with the closest port of entry, as you all know, is the port of Laredo. And Laredo is the port that the city of Cotulla will most likely tether to. And I don't mean the city of Laredo, I'm talking about the customs port of entry, okay? Just for clarification, the customs port is where we would tether. And so I touched base with the customs personnel. I did touch base with the grantee in Laredo just to let them know, hey, I'm looking at helping out Cotulla. Do you all have any issues with that? They say no, but obviously you never know. The grantee can always change positions on this. I think what we need to do is really, I'd like to see, I've been gathering information to put the application together, but there's a lot of information that I really need to get follow-up from staff to make it possible. And the reason I say that is because there's only so much information you can draw from the internet and from the public domain, what's out there, okay? I haven't found any information as far as economic data, and I need more detailed data so that I can kind of massage it into the application as to, here we have a small community and it's in the path of one of the largest funnels of international trade, which is the Interstate 35. It starts in Laredo and it goes northeast direction, and it just picks up. And Cotulla being so close to that port and also to the port of San Antonio is in a very unique situation. You can grow and you can sustain international trade as you become a pivotal point for trade. And you got to look at it, it's not just what's coming by ground, but you also have a regional general aviation airport that could also be a kind of a magnet to that. So going on with this application, there are some letters of support and letters of interest that are necessary. I have forwarded those to Mr. Wright. Those are template or sample letters that all you got to do, or the company that's interested, is they can put them in their stationery in their own letterhead, sign it, and send it to me. And the same goes with letters of support. Obviously, if there are business organizations in Cotulla or close to Cotulla, those are very important, because what it's saying to the Foreign Trade Zones Board, which is an agency under the Department of Commerce, is that the community is together in supporting and trying to attract international trade. Okay, so this is all justification that we got to put together. The economic justification involves data about Cotulla or surrounding Cotulla that I need to work with your staff. And the other part has to do with letters of support and letters of interest. And that's easier because I'm providing those letters. We're also going to have to get a letter of basically a cover letter coming from the city of Cotulla. I'll put it together. All that is my job, to put it together and say, okay, give it to council, present it, approve it, and have the mayor or city secretary sign off on it. And that'll all be included with the application. There's a lot of loose pieces, and that's what my role is. So I'm really anxious to get this further along. I know we've kind of not stumbled, but kind of slowed down because I was informed that you all recently have a new city council, and I guess this is a good time to bring you up to date. It's where we're at, So we're putting the pieces together of that application, it is a long process because when I get everything together, I want to be able to talk with the board, which I'm on a first name basis, and tell them, look, this is the application. Tell me what else you need, what you don't like, and then we correct it. I'll make sure we fill out any loose things that we need to firm up, and then we formally dock it. And when we formally dock it, that means the board has to take action on it formally, put it into the docket place, and it's totally under their domain. So my job would be is to just to follow it through, and if there's any questions from the board or necessary clarification, I would follow through and let the city of Cotulla know if there's something that needs to be done. But more than likely, once it's gone to the formal docket stage, it's kind of a waiting game. Okay, and so we want to put a very strong application that includes getting the federal congressman that in which the city of Cotulla falls under. I believe that's Congressman Tony Gonzalez. We also want to probably have maybe the county put a letter of support, and I think you all have good relations with the county there, and also with your state, the state federal delegation. It wouldn't hurt to have a letter from John Cornyn or the other senator from Texas. They're not required, but I think I always like to do that, is have at least one federal legislator in there showing, hey, we're all the way up to our delegation, our federal delegation. They're aware of it, and the agency is made aware that, okay, good, you have support not only from your political leaders at the local level, which is city council and the county, but at the state, federal level, you also have that interaction going on and that support. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. So what I've done last month, I did provide a project activity update to your legal counsel, to Stephen, Mr. Pena, and to Dave Wright, just to kind of tell them kind of a big picture. Okay, these are the things, these are the elements, these are the pieces that we need to work on. And so I really just want to make sure that we keep that communication going, because I don't mind reporting to council, but it's really more of a menial task where we're putting pieces together. I'm getting documentation. I'm providing you letters or anything that the city staff needs to do to make sure that I get it back and it's incorporated into that application. Are there any questions?
No, sir.
No. So I really look forward to really stepping it up a little bit. If there's somebody in your leadership, be it a business organization that would like to be involved some way, that can help me with economic data, that would be great. But I think the letters of support and the letters of interest, I'm talking about a private for-profit corporation there in Cotulla who has expressed or is interested in a foreign trade zone. And even if they don't go through with it, but just the fact that they can put it in writing and say, you know what, we would consider operating a foreign trade zone, and we support the city of Cotulla's application. That talks a lot. Okay. That's what the board wants to see is it's not just the government, but it's also the business community that's supporting the application. Those are very critical for that we do that. I'm patiently, I'll wait with you all, make sure that if there's any interested body, they need to hear from me about the process. I inform them, I tell them what it's about, and tell them what we need, and I answer any questions. So that, in a 5-10 minute, that's the nutshell, that's where we're at.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the information.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Any questions for me?
No, sir.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, number 18, we're going to go into closed session with consultation with attorney on Item A, KJ Oilfield Services lawsuit, and item B, annexation dated October 26, 1976. And we'll have a 10-minute break also so I can sign some papers.
No action was taken.
No action was taken in closed session. Just a discussion with the lawyer on item A and B, the oil field service lawsuit and the annexation of October 26, 1976. And that's it. Do I have a motion to
adjourn?
To adjourn?
Meeting adjourned.
Ms. Garcia and Ms. Korlinski seconds the motion. And we are adjourned.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Closed at 10:22.